All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday, February 17th, 2022 meeting of the Humboldt County Planning Commission. And as usual, in accordance with the Executive Order N-29-20, the Planning Commission meeting will be held virtually. Go to the county website to see the different ways to join us. With that, I will call the meeting to order and ask everybody to join me for a salute to the flag. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Thank you, everyone. Laura, I'd ask for a roll call, please.
Alan Bongio.
Yes, present.
Thomas Mulder.
Here.
Noah Levy.
Here.
Mike Newman.
Present.
Peggy O'Neill.
Here.
Brian Mitchell. Melanie McCaver.
Here.
All right. Thank you, Laura. It looks like we have all but one, so we have a quorum. And so the next thing is the Board of Supervisors letter regarding cannabis permitting. And Director.
Thanks, Chair. So the Planning Commission sent a letter to the Board of Supervisors expressing concern with several areas of cannabis permitting and processing. And the board provided a letter in response, responding to those concerns. And as you will see, the primary response is that the board understood the concerns, and where there are concerns that need to be addressed with conditions or modifications to the project, the board simply asked the Planning Commission to make sure that there are detailed findings identifying the need for those changes or conditions. And so I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Is there any questions for the director on that matter? It appears there's no questions. Thank you, Director, for getting that back to us. And we will move on. So that brings us. Yeah.
Yes, we have a couple different agenda modifications. First is there is a supplemental for item F2, Full Moon Farms. It is an unamended resolution. If the commission's satisfied with that, that can remain on consent. We're also asking that item F5, the David Thomas conditional use permit and special permit, be removed from consent. There are no other modifications to the agenda that we're proposing at this time.
That first one was which item?
Is F2 Full Moon Farms.
Okay. Mike, go ahead.
Mike, go ahead.
Well, you'll get the hang of it here, Alan. That's for sure. I just wanted to know what much of anything on that resolution was different.
Director's getting, he's looking at something.
Alan, this is Brian. While he's doing that, I just want to let you know I was finally promoted to panelist, so I'm here.
Right. So we have a full commission.
You're
Mr.
muted, Alan.
So I believe what this simply did was modified the project description. And the project description that's being modified, it is still less than the advertised area, but it is slightly more than the area that was recommended for approval in the staff report. It's my understanding that when we further evaluated the cultivation area verification, that we determined that there was more pre-existing cultivation there that could be supported. And so are recommending approval of that expanded amount. So it's really a matter of modifying the project description. And again, I want to reiterate, we advertised the amount that the applicant had originally requested in the application. We recommended that it be reduced in size. And so what this does is slightly increases it over what we had previously recommended, but it's still less than what was advertised.
All right, thank you.
You, Director. Any other questions for the Director? Okay. So we're on consent agenda.
Yeah, I actually, sorry, I did have one. I just wanted to call out that there was also a supplemental that seemed worth noting for the Jake Perkins farm, to do with the fact that they had accidentally, the project description had a nursery propagation area that was above the 10% threshold. A condition to reduce that to 10% has now been added. That's my understanding of the supplemental.
That is correct. I apologize for having missed that.
Thank you. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was understanding that.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the consent agenda and ask if there's. Oh, you're right.
I'm getting ahead of myself, so I apologize. We have public comment on non-agenda items.
We have
You're
public
not-
comment. Yeah, I got it. We have public comment on non-agenda items to do first. I was getting ahead of myself. I apologize. So this is a time when anybody can speak on any item that is not on the agenda tonight. Let me get over to the summary.
So the first call.
First caller is public 5288.
5288.
Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You're totally breaking up as far as what's coming across. We're only getting about half of what you say, even when you are not muted. Just thought I'd let you know about that. I do appreciate, I had a 4 o'clock appointment with John Ford today, and unfortunately, I guess that didn't happen. Frequently, he answers some very quick questions, and then I don't pull things from consent. Those have not been answered, and so you answered one of them just now regarding the one project which has come in line with ancillary. I won't need to pull that one, but I do have questions or comments that sometimes within 15 minutes, John and I can knock off 10 or so of these projects and clarify, and he does bring some things forward, and so do I. I just wanted to make that mention. I did want to make mention a primary angst I have with planning and building is they neither have on staff nor do they have commitments for people to come in and answer questions. In other words, experts. I don't know if they have a biologist on staff. I don't know if they have a geologist on staff. I don't know if they have a hydrologist or a hydrological engineer on staff. But for you to have good information, those people don't need to be on staff, but you need to have them on a call or a consultant basis or a contract. This last supervisors meeting, Steve Madrone went over the top of a geologist, I believe was his title. I felt Steve Madrone himself was more qualified, and he did totally contest and had the opposite opinion what they have. So it's not very smart or intelligent, in my opinion, not to have these experts on call to do peer review. So this is something I think you should be asking your staff. Why don't we have experts that we can ask questions of, either staff can ask questions of, or in the case of an appeal like this, peer review could be had to as far as the quality of the thing. That's just not wise as far as I'm concerned. Use your experts. That's what they're there for. So I also wanted to just mention to you, about 2 years ago, I came across the fact that the kinetic sculpture did not have a permit. I brought this to the Planning Commission. I brought it to a letter formally to Planning Department, and in that time period, it's been indicated they don't, and yet I have had no response here. I reiterated my thing to John here the other day, wondering why, because I'm not trying to shut the thing down, but they do go through some issues. They go through some places where they might not want to be going through, and there's a fear of damage for that. So if you hear the last thing I want to do is shut it down, but maybe we have to do some modifications. Nobody said they don't need a permit. Nobody's brought me a permit. So that's something I brought forward. I think I brought forward to you about 2 years ago and then followed up without having any response. So that's the end of my public comment for today. I will be pulling some of those from consent. I don't need a staff report, just a couple quick questions, and maybe we can slide through those really quick. That's the way I'd like to do this, if that's permissible. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Director Ford, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. Relative to the kinetic sculpture race, I apologize to Mr. Swatsky. I've not given him a written response yet because we have not finalized it. But the essence is the kinetic sculpture race goes back into the 70s. That predates the adoption of the county LCP. And so it is non-conforming relative to the coastal permitting process. Relative to any zoning that would be applied, it would not require a use permit. It would not have required a use permit at that time. So we have made the determination that a permit is not required.
Thank you, Director. So the next caller is Sue Moore. Go ahead, Sue.
Good evening. Respectfully, I invite members of the Planning Commission and Mr. Ford to meet with the residents of Bayside to walk the impacted area of the old Arcata Road project that was approved 4-1 by the Arcata City Council last night, February 16th. Despite its only 30% design completion, the EIR was certified and the project, still 70% undone, was rendered fully acceptable to Arcata City staff and 4 council members. In December, I spoke at Humboldt County Planning Commission in public comment to request assistance from Humboldt County staff. Well, we received none. It was left to a group of residents and their attorney to hire a traffic engineer to professionally evaluate the proposed roundabout in the Humboldt County jurisdiction. This letter was submitted to the Arcata City Council on February 7th. Yet they remained unconcerned despite the serious issues that were raised. I have not heard from Humboldt County as to whether or not they received that letter and whether or not they felt anything was worthwhile commenting about at the meeting last night. This project will forever alter the character of Bayside and further disrupt its rural, unique character. There are many urgent improvements to safety needed in that area, but they should be based upon a professional traffic study. There should be a detailed analysis of the entire project, which actually encompasses Humboldt County jurisdiction all the way north, close to the Buttermilk Roundabout in Arcata. It would also be helpful to hear from Humboldt County staff their thoughts upon the detailed traffic study that was submitted on February 7th to the City Council of Arcata. So I'd ask again, could someone from Humboldt County staff please agree to meet with the residents of Bayside who remain concerned about this project within the area of Jacoby Creek Road, Old Arcata, the post office, and the once historic area? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. And the director would like to comment.
I did look into this and discovered that there is really very little county jurisdiction, and most all of it, if not all of it, is completely encompassed within the right of way. Most of it is in the city of Arcata, and that's why it's appropriately placed within the jurisdiction of Arcata. Arcata is the lead agency, the county is not. And so I know that we have coordinated our Public Works Department. I see that Mr. Bronco is here, has coordinated with the city. And it is really a city project, and it's not a county project.
All right. Thank you, Director. Next call would be Nathan Masden.
Thank you, Chair Bongio. Nate Madsen of Rain and Zep PLC. I would just like to briefly reiterate comments that were made at the last Planning Commission hearing that if the commission were willing to entertain a procedural shift, it would seem more fair and helpful to applicants that have been waiting a long time to have their projects heard. I know the consent calendar is new business, and it's great that it comes first and gets taken care of, but if it could be procedurally shifted that consent is done and items pulled could go at the back of the list behind business that's been waiting, in some cases, months to have their project heard, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the time to speak.
Thank you. And I'm getting the nod from the director that is a good idea. So we're going to do that. So when we get anything that's pulled, we will do after we do existing projects.
If I could, Chair, I would suggest you've got one public hearing item that's related to an application on old business, and then you've got consideration of the telecommunications ordinance.
Right.
I would put the items that get pulled from consent after the one public hearing item, the Golden Bud LLC, and then allow the communication facilities ordinance to follow that.
Okay.
Because that'll allow the commission the remainder of the meeting to really focus on that ordinance.
That'd be fine. And that's kind of what I was thinking as well. So we'll do that. We'll put the pulled consent items after what was the name of it? The Golden Bud LLC special permit. All right. Any other public that wishes to speak at this time? I have one hand up on the panelists, so I'm gonna move over to that and see. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you. I had a few comments to make actually, and questions. So I was wondering if the director could give us an update on the research into the dark sky monitoring. There are several economical ways to do that. I think that the cost comes in when you're trying to quantify night sky. So for example, if you want to know exactly, what the impact would be, but the presence and absence shouldn't be, I think, terribly expensive. So I was hoping for an update on that. And then also, and I'm hoping the other commissioners might want to know this as well. I was wondering if you could prepare for us basically a results sheet in terms of the projects that we've approved with enhanced monitoring, and let us know how those went, because I think it would be useful for us to know where we do give those approvals out in good faith with the enhanced monitoring, whether there are then violations. So, are 90% of them later in violation or 10%? And, there are a lot of other reasons why I think that would be a valuable piece of information to have. So I'd like to hear from the director on those two things. And then just for my fellow commissioners, the next CCPCA conference is coming up, believe it or not. It'll be October 14th to 16th in Sacramento this year. And you can go to planningcommission.org and check out the schedule. It should be posted shortly. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Director, I'm not sure it's the right time for this, but if you'd like to respond to those, go ahead.
I'd be happy to respond, but could I suggest that maybe that be done at the end of the meeting and not under public comment?
Okay, I agree. It was not exactly the right time to bring those up, Melanie, but they're good points and we will get to them. So we'll bring those back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it should be now or at the end, but yeah.
Fine to bring it up. It's just, I think that to keep things moving, we should move on through the meeting, then bring that up at the end.
Great, thank you.
I have an item to bring up as well. So that brings us on to the consent agenda. And as usual, I will poll both the commission and the public to, if there's any item that they wish to have pulled. So the first item that I'm going to ask is the review and approval of the January 20th, 2022 action summary. Is there anybody who wishes to have that item pulled? Okay, seeing none, we'll leave that on. And the second item is Full Moon Farms Incorporated, and that was asked by staff to.
Sorry, we provided a revised resolution modifying the project description. This one, as far as staff's concerned, can stay on consent.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I misunderstood that. It was the other one that you wanted pulled, number 5. I got them mixed up. So
You're silent, Alan.
I'm sorry, I do see a hand up in the public, so we will pull item number 2 from consent. And we'll move on to item number 3, Jake Perkins conditional use permit in the New Harris area. Is there anybody who wishes to have that item pulled? Is that still up from the last one though? Okay, so we will pull that one.
Is he frozen?
I don't think but, the audio disappears every once in a while. So might be a dodgy connection.
I'm just not seeing Alan move.
Yeah, he's been holding that position for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like he just disconnected maybe.
I don't see him on there now.
He's probably reconnecting. So just for this moment, so next meeting is when we're going to be in the chambers then, Director?
That is correct. Yes, we will start the hybrid meetings on the March 4th or March 3rd meeting.
Okay.
Alan is.
All right. Hopefully you can all hear me. We lost everything. We had to reboot it all. So I don't know, maybe that's not the right term, but we had to restart it all. So I apologize for that, everyone. And let me get back to where we were.
So Alan, your audio is working, but your video is not.
Okay. Okay. We should have audio and video now. And I apologize for the inconvenience. So that should bring us to item number 4, the Emerald Kid Incorporated Conditional Use Permit Modification in the Willow Creek area. Is there anybody who wishes to have this item pulled? I see a hand up, so we'll pull this item. And that brings us to item number 5, which was already pulled from consent by staff. So we will move on to item number 6. which is Reed Mountain Farms LLC conditional use permit in the Bembo area. And that's pulled. So basically, we pulled all the items that were on consent, with the exception of the minutes, the summary. So could I get a motion to move for approval of the minutes on the consent? Review of the January 2022 action summary.
So moved.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Laura, roll call vote, please.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Motion carries unanimous. All right, so now we're gonna move ahead to old business and then come back to the consent items that were pulled. So the first item on old business is the Golden Bud LLC special permit in the Palo Verde area. And we'll take staff report, please.
All right, bringing that up for you right now, commissioners. Okay, can you hear me and see my screen okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Max Hilken, and I'm presenting the Solar Solutions, or Golden Bud LLC special permit. The proposed project includes a special permit for 7,700 square feet of existing cannabis cultivation and an additional 35,860 square feet of new cultivation. The project is broken out into two phases. Phase one would consist of 19,800 square feet of cultivation. 9,800 of that would be mixed light, and 10,000 square feet of that would be outdoor cultivation. The second phase of the project would include expanding out and including that new cultivation area, which would bring the total project area up to 1 acre or 43,560 square feet of cultivation. The mixed light would not increase in phase two, only the outdoor cultivation. Drying and storage will occur on site in a proposed 1,334 square foot structure. Up to 7 people are expected on site during peak operations. And power for the project is provided by solar and wind energy with PG&E to offset additional needs. To note, a propane generator is on site, but it's designated for emergency use only. The water resources tied to this project include rainwater catchment system, utilizing on-site structures. So currently existing available water storage on site totals 237,000 gallons. With the phase one build out, the annual water use total would be 282,000 gallons or 14.2 gallons per square feet. The project during phase one is conditioned to install 45,000 gallons of additional storage prior to cultivating at phase one levels. For the phase two build out, the annual water use total is 607,000 gallons and 200 and change, or effectively 13.93 gallons per square feet. At phase two, the project is conditioned to install 370,000 additional gallons of water storage before they're able to move on to phase two cultivation amounts. Access to the site is off of Island Mountain Road, which is a county maintained road. Road evaluation report was prepared for the project that indicates the road can accommodate the traffic generated from this project. And here you'll see a slide that's showing an aerial image of the cultivation areas as proposed on the subject parcel. This concludes my presentation. The agent for the project, Mr. Madsen, is in attendance for tonight's hearing. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, commissioners. I'll give the screen back to you.
Thank you. Noah, I see you have your hand up to ask Max a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Hilkin, for that presentation. I just have what I think is a simple question. The phrasing in the staff report as well as the project summary says, and as in your presentation says, I believe power will be provided by solar and wind with PG&E to offset any additional needs. I just wanted to be clear, is PG&E presently available on site, or is that a prospective use of getting PG&E at some point in the future?
That's a great question, Commissioner Levy. The PG&E currently, I do not believe is on site now. Currently, for phase 1 build out, the site would be able to operate under its current solar and wind energy as included in the project. PG&E would be required at phase 2 operation build outs for the processing building.
I see. So essentially, does that mean, because I know the staff report was very clear that the phase 2 is conditioned on obtaining and installing the additional water storage. Would there also be the condition of, would phase 2 build out of the additional cultivation area also be conditioned on getting PG&E power installed?
There isn't the specific timeline tied to phase 2 in the conditions, but I would point your attention to condition number 16, which does require that for the continuation of the project, they do have to show during each annual inspection that their energy is coming from PG&E Repower Plus, and that they do require a sign off from the planning department to satisfy that condition.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful.
Are there any other questions for Max while he's here? Thomas, go ahead.
I just wanted to note on that condition, they could also supply a energy budget to show other renewable sources is the way I read that. Because I'm just thinking the logistics of PG&E on that site are probably pretty far out there.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I will now open up the public comment. And we have one commenter. It's there's two, 5288.
Looks like you got your technologicals taken care of there, Alan.
Yes.
Yeah, this project to me seemed quite clean and clear. It does have some interesting factors there, and I concur probably with Thomas there. As long as any more power that's done is done by provided by solar and wind rather than PG&E, I'd rather see that happen personally. And so I think they should have that option maybe clarified as their condition if it's not already. Maybe I misunderstood what you were doing there. I did see. I go for anomalies, and I'll bring up something later. This one here has only 960 square foot of greenhouse. In other words, is the ancillary, is that for the total project or is that just for the first 7,700? So that's just it's great that they're keeping it that way. And I wish the rest of them wouldn't be taking that to the equivalent of 4,000 square feet. So I like the project overall. I like the water usage. I like the water storage that's proposed on this one, so I have no objections. I did want to make note on here, I think, if I recall, did you say there were 6 employees for an acre? And I will be referring back to this later where we have another project of 16,000 square foot with 9 employees. And these anomalies are what bother me, you know, as far as these things go. So I did want to also, Alan, I did not try to pull number 3. Now, I think you made a comment, it was sketchy on hearing there, but I didn't, you said maybe the hand's still up, and I did not try to pull item number 3. So if you wish to put that back on consent, if that was the only hand up, then go for that. I only pulled 3 of those. Thank you.
Well, there was a hand up when I pulled it, so it may not have been you, but there was a hand up.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Kent, for
Thank you.
that up. All right. So we have the applicant and we have one other caller still. So I'm going to go to the caller first and let the applicant be the last so they can follow up. So the next caller would be 5375, please.
Hi, this is Lindsay Jones with Aloha Humboldt. I'm another farmer in Willow Creek, and I'm just calling in support of this project. I think that it's a wonderful project that you should approve. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Nathan Masden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bongio. Thank you, commissioners, for the excellent questions, and thank you so much for accommodating the order shift. Greatly appreciated. Noah, you asked about PG&E, and it seemed like that was a common thread throughout the questions. My understanding is there's a PG&E drop on site, but we don't have a building permit to support that. So this project has been pending since 2017, I believe, prior to the current ownership, prior to my involvement. So once we're able to get the building permits that are pending processed, I believe it's a flip of a switch for PG&E. So I think we're actually very lucky in that regard. Thank you, Kent, for the suggestion for additional solar and wind. The solar and wind is existing. It does power a great deal of the operational needs, but time PG&E to support any peak demand would benefit the project, and green energy offsets are proposed for that. And if additional renewable on-site generation can be identified, I'm sure it will be incorporated. That the applicant is very happy with their existing on-site generation. As for the ancillary propagation kit, yes, the propagation area is very small, and I've discussed that with the applicant. They may propose a minor addition to that, which is not proposed at this time with this proposal, but yeah, propagation area is going to be tight for sure. And you mentioned 6 employees, but there's actually anticipated 7. And hopefully they'll be able to get it all done. I know they intend to hustle. I don't think I missed any particular questions, but I will give the floor back. And if the commissioners have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Nathan. So with that, I'm going to close the public comment. I'm going to go back to the commission. Is there anybody who wishes to ask Nathan a question or have any other questions? I see one hand up, but I don't see who it is. Oh, go ahead, Thomas. That's not showing up on my.
This question is to staff.
Now it does.
In the recommendation, it says it looks like it's saying to approve it under the CMMLUO, but the way I read the staff report, I think we would be approving it under the CCLUO, but maybe I misread the staff report part. Just at the very top of page 3 in recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner Mulder. That would be correct. The recommended action on page 3, I believe, of the staff report should have a reference to the CCLUO. This was a 1.0 turn 2.0 project.
So thank you for.
I will note that the correct CCLUO language is placed throughout the document in the legally binding sections, including the resolution for the staff report.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to make sure the way I read it, and being as it is under Ordinance 2.0, I do support the added conditions of approval.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Brian, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize if I missed this discussion last week while my children were battling COVID. However, I never heard staff's response to the question of the City of Arcata road realignment and resurfacing project. I have no comment or concern about any of the part within the city limits, but I do have concerns about the portion that extends into the county. You know, Jacoby Creek Road and beyond is a very, rural pastoral area. And I'm just wondering how the city could make approvals for changing of design and community characteristics without having the plan commission or the Board of Supervisors weigh in on that.
Brian, we're in the middle of a different project. I don't have any problem with you bringing up your concerns on that, but let's bring it up at the end of the meeting and talk about it, because we're in the middle of the Golden Bud LLC special permit right now. So we will.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I just want to put a bookmark in there so that we can talk about it at the end.
Okay. Noted. All right. Thank you. And then I see Thomas's hand back up. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was just raising my hand asking for us to get back to Golden Bud project.
Okay, I'm trying to be respectful and just, hear what he had to say, but we'll come back to that. All right. Are there any other questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none. Is anybody willing to make a motion on this one? Go ahead, Noah.
Sure, I will. I move that we adopt the resolution to find that the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration for the CCLUO pursuant to section 15164 of the state CEQA guidelines, make all of the required findings for approval of the special permit, and approve the Golden Bud LLC project as recommended by staff, subject to the recommended conditions.
I'll second.
Thomas, second. And director wants to.
I just want to clarify, since this is the CCLUO, ultimately, that is the addendum to be to the EIR that was prepared for the CCLUO. I'm sorry if that's incorrect in the staff report. Minor thing, but probably important overall.
Yeah, thank you for that correction, Director. I so amend my motion.
And as a seconder, I'll go with the amendment.
All right, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Laura, roll call vote, please.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes. All right, thank you, Laura. Motion carries unanimous. All right, and the director suggested that we go back and catch item number 3, which is the one that the staff pulled. And I thought that staff pulled number 3.
No.
You're right. You are correct. You are correct. That's the one that Kent thought he pulled. I apologize. We've been jumping around. I stay on top of things. Okay, so we're going to look at item number 3, and it is the Jake Perkins conditional use permit in the New Harris area. And I'm going to ask the whoever pulled this if there's just a simple question. He said he didn't pull this one.
Correct. That's why we can just get a motion.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody pulled it though, and there is a hand up in the audience. So I'm going to ask that whoever that is, it's Lisa Fuchs. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correct, but Is there a simple question that you have regarding this, or do we need to have a full staff report on it?
I think it's pretty simple. I've got, I'm new to this, so I apologize, but I had a statement I wanted to read with a couple proposed conditions and a couple concerns that I was hoping you could address. Should I go ahead and read that right now?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this evening in my capacity as executor and trustee of the estate of Eugene Segre, who's the owner of the parcel of property adjacent to Jake Perkins' property, directly to the east. And in this capacity, my sole concern is that I make sure nothing is done to negatively impact my father's property. I appreciate the support that I received through your planning office. Laura McLennigan and Alec Barton were both very helpful. And hopefully a few of you had a chance to review the letter that I submitted earlier today. I apologize for the late submission, but I was confused about the process. That letter details 2 suggested conditions and 2 concerns that I have regarding this project. In my discussion with Alec Barton, the planner, he suggested 2 conditions that I should ask for you to consider in this situation. The first is due to the close proximity of the proposed cultivation to our parcel, which is 31 feet, could a boundary survey be conducted to ensure that there is no encroachment on our property? And the second condition is from the site plan submitted in October 2018, it appears that the backup generator referenced is also close to our property line. And we were hoping that steps could be taken to mitigate any potential fire hazard from the backup generator, such as an enclosure. So those are the 2 conditions. And then I had 2 other concerns, recognizing that I'm not an expert on these issues. I'm just a concerned property owner. And those concerns are, first, the executive summary stated that the project area is located on mountainous slopes with high instability. Given said instability and that the cultivation is proposed, as I mentioned, within 31 feet of our parcel, how do we prevent the possibility of chemical runoff, either from fertilizer or pesticides, from operations going onto our property? And then secondly, I believe our parcel is downstream from the proposed project. And the staff report states that the applicant shall bypass 90% of flow at all times. So first I have a question, which is, does that mean that he takes 90% of the water before it reaches our property? Or is it 10%? And then how do you assure that he remains compliant with the water restrictions that they lay out in the project proposal? So that's basically what I had. Thank you for your consideration of these conditions and for addressing my concerns, if you can.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? And then I'll let the director answer that question, or staff, whoever wishes to. Seeing none. Oh wait, there is. Public 5288, go ahead.
So if the person who spoke was correct, what is the required setback from that? I thought there was a larger setback than 31 feet. Is there a variance on that setback, or am I misunderstanding the normal setback from other properties? That's all.
All right, thank you. Anybody else that wishes to speak on this? All right, I'll close public comment and I'll let the director or staff, whoever would like to answer those questions.
Chair Bongio, I can address those questions. So the first question was about what could be done to limit fertilizer and pesticide runoff. I spoke with the applicant for this project, and he responded to my question and said that cultivation, of course, is not occurring near waterways or within streamside management areas. The applicant utilizes in-ground beds, which has less runoff and leaching than pots. And he also specified that he uses mostly organic, low NPK inputs and swaddles when rain levels create runoff. So these are typical practices that have been used in other projects to reduce runoff associated with cultivation efforts. in regards to the question about bypass, that would be, so 90% of flow has to remain in the stream at all times. The maximum bypass that could be taken or diverted from the stream at any given time would be 10%. And Lisa Fuchs had a question regarding how that's enforced. Condition of approval number 9, which is a condition related to the Water Resources Protection Plan, includes a provision that within 3 months, the applicant needs to install water meters at the point of diversion to track usage. And so that's how that would be monitored. Regarding setbacks, the requirement is that no cultivation can occur within 300 feet of a residence, and that requirement is being met by this project. I believe there is some cultivation that's happening near the property line, but not within the setback of the neighboring residents.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that answered all of those questions.
What about the question on the generator closure?
Good catch, Mike.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what the question is there, but I know that that's something that we had discussed that there were some concerns about, and I know with prior projects, recommending an enclosure is something that has come up in previous meetings, and so I'm not sure of the specific concern with that particular generator.
Her concern was about fire exposure. Most of the time, I thought the enclosures were for sound in the past.
So one of the things the commission could do is to, through the chair, I apologize for just jumping in.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is to impose a condition requiring that the generator be placed within a fire resistant structure or just to contain any fire danger within the structure itself.
So fire resistant might be the word.
I think you could say fireproof. That would really mean it would be built of block and metal and not wood.
Okay. Thomas, you have your hand up.
So this project, if I remember reading in the conditions, that'd be a pretty strong condition if you're going to make them take away generator use at some point in time, or maybe I mixed up these couple projects that have them in there and don't have them in there. But as far as generator use, I guess I'm wrong about what's in the ordinance, because I thought to follow and the county ordinance, you couldn't have noise over a certain level, but then following the water board rules, I swear you can't have any exposed generators, but maybe I read the water board rules the wrong way. It's been about a year since I've read them again, so I might need to study up on that.
All right. Either Alec or Director want to comment to that? Yeah.
Well, I think what Commissioner Mulder is saying is correct. But I think a different issue has been raised here, and that issue is relative to wildfire. And so the enclosure at this point would go beyond just a matter of noise attenuation. It would go beyond just enclosing it. And I think part of the purpose of the water board rules is to keep water from running down off the generator, washing things out of the containment area and into surface water. And so we're saying all that is still true. Those are all requirements. But in this particular case, looking to ensure that the generator is also put in an enclosure which would not allow it to start a wildfire, that the fire danger would be contained within the structure.
Okay, thank you, Director. Peggy, I see you have your hand up.
Is this something you're requiring of all generators, or is this just something we're going to require here because someone has a concern? Because I mean, it would be applicable to everyone or not, you know. So I'm just curious.
That is really something that I think the commission should weigh as imposing the condition. Often generators do come with concerns for fire danger from the public. This is not the first time the commission has heard this.
Thomas, you have your hand back up.
I do hear the response from the director, and thank you. And you reminded me actually in your response that actually the concern was because the generator was so close in proximity to the property line, whereas I've seen other generators not so close to proximity. But if the findings we're coming to stop using generator use is because of potential fire danger, couldn't we, if we condition the project to have a structure that couldn't catch fire, then I think we would mitigate that wildfire risk or health and safety risk and allow them to keep the generator for a longer period of time is kind of how I'm reading that.
Well, I think that's policy call for the planning commission to weigh.
Okay. Brian, I see you have your hand up.
I just wanted to ask the director, how far away is the nearest volunteer fire department or other type of fire response unit from this location?
I do not have an answer to that. Alec, did you look at that at all?
I'm not sure of the answer to that, but I can look into that.
Yeah, if you, Commissioner Mitchell, if you give us a few minutes and let us take a look, and we'll see if we can get you an answer.
Okay, and if we just assume, just for the sake of discussion, that it is far away, would that be an appropriate finding along with the CO2 emissions that we're trying to mitigate as a county and as a state in order to put a sunset date on generator use for this project? Would those two go together logically and something that we could stand behind should it be questioned further along the process?
I think that clearly the relationship of emergency response would be a good finding. I'm not sure I understand the tie-in to requiring the fireproof enclosure to be related to any greenhouse gas emissions or anything like that.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of giving it what we have been doing, which is in the interim, while they're building out their infrastructure, they can continue to use the generators, but by December 31st, 2025, we'd like those to be based on an energy plan, and that 80% of the energy come from renewable resources. And since we've had issues with findings not supporting changes to conditions, I was asking if our desire to see reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, noise, out in wilderness areas, be suitable findings to make in order to add that as a condition.
I'm sorry, I'm still struggling with the relationship to greenhouse gas. But I know that I get the point that this is kind of an interim step. And that is something that the commission is interested in seeing a reduction in the use of generators as a means of minimizing greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental impacts. I think one of the things that I'm also hearing from the commission is a concern that if the commission were to impose this permanent infrastructure, this shelter, that maybe that's something that would cause the commission to view the use of the generator to be a little bit longer term. And so I think there's some inherent tensions that are going on in this particular case.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not proposing they build buildings and then a few years later take out the generators. I was trying to find appropriate findings to make the condition that there's a sunset date on the generators based on those reasons I just stated. Is that something staff could support if it were to go to an appeal, what I listed?
Yeah, no, we're absolutely going to work with you to develop the findings to go in the direction that you're looking to go here. We do recognize the commission is looking to do away with generators. And so I think we're equipped to help you make those findings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. No, I see you put your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm confused and possibly I missed something in the presentation, but looking at the staff report, looking at this executive summary, electrical power is provided by a solar array and a Kohler 8.5 kilowatt propane generator is used as a backup power source. And I believe that was noted by the neighbors, by the neighbor who commented about the generator. But from my perspective, we have gone to these lengths of adding additional conditions and conditioning a transition or conditioning a transition away from a generator when the generator is the primary or only power source. But in this case, it's just backup. And that would suggest that its use will be very limited. And it's a propane generator, which I believe, although I could be wrong, but my understanding is that they're less prone to fire risk as well versus gas or diesel. But mainly, not because of the propane, but just because it is the backup only, I'm having a hard time seeing the need for these additional conditions beyond what's already conditioned. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Anybody else who has a comment on this?
I just would like to ask that if this is a backup generator only, I would have a hard time trying to condition it with a fireproof building as well, since number one, it's backup, and number two, that it should be phased out at a certain point.
I mean, is there a definition of what backup is? I mean, is that at night and anytime it's overcast, or is there a specific definition on what backup means, unless they have a full battery array and can store power on sunny days to be able to utilize at night and in foul weather days?
So when we speak of a backup generator, we're typically referring to something that is not used as a primary power source. There is either PG&E or other renewable sources on site that provide power. And then the generator is only used when those sources of power are not available.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alec, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bongio. I was just going to respond to the earlier question about the volunteer fire department. The closest fire department appears to be about 1.7 miles away. It's located on Island Mountain Road, which is the same road that the project is located on.
Thank you for that information.
Is that the Palo Verde Volunteer Fire Department?
Yes.
That's correct.
So it is a volunteer fire department?
All right. Any other
Mr. Chairman,
questions?
can I say something else?
Go ahead, Noah.
I know that public comment is closed and you don't usually like to reopen it, but I just wanted to flag in case you hadn't noticed that Jacob Perkins has his hand raised, and I'm assuming that is the owner and applicant. So to the extent that we have questions that we can't answer, we might want to consider asking him.
I saw that too, Noah. So since you brought it up, I'm not going to open up public comment again, but I will let the applicant speak. So if Josh can promote him, let Jacob Perkins speak, please. Are you there, Jacob? *6 to unmute. I'll give it another second, but not there, he's not there. One last chance, Jacob, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my internet is in and out right now, so if you lose me, I apologize. But yeah, I was gonna mention about the fire department is super close to me. And as far as the structure for the propane generator, it's already in an enclosed, what I consider fireproof building. It's on a slab lined with fire safe backing and hardy board siding, which is fire resistant. There's already a structure there in place, like you guys were talking about, maybe putting in the conditions.
All right. Looks like you answered the question that was of concern. Any other questions for Jacob while we have him here for the commission? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it. So I'm going to bring it back to the commission. What would you like to do with this? Is there anybody like to make a motion? Help me out here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to make a motion, and I would do so. Well, maybe I'll just go ahead and do it. I move that the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration for the CMLUO as described by section 15164 of the state CEQA guidelines. Make the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit and approve the Jake Perkins Farms conditional use permit as recommended by staff, subject to the recommended conditions.
Noah, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Thomas. Any further discussion on this?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
There was a suggested condition about the boundary survey. Wanted to ask staff, I forgot in our discussion with the generator and all of that, about the boundary survey possibility is, do we know when that boundary was last surveyed on this staff report?
So I do not know when it was last surveyed.
Is it appropriate to have that as a condition on this particular permit?
The director's having a problem with his mic right now, Mike, so bear with him.
Oh, yes, I see. He's frozen. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that the fact that the nearest fire response is within less than 2 miles really helps me get more comfortable with this, and the description of what backup stands for, I do plan on supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Peggy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, my question just went along sort of like what Mike said. Did we address the issues that were brought up by the neighboring landowner? And a survey is going to cost a minimum of $18,000, depending on how much land you're surveying, but it's not a cheap addition. So it could have been an old survey. There could be some markers that someone could locate. Maybe it would be less expensive if they could find existing markers in the ground. But I don't know if we addressed any of her issues. Maybe she can tell us if we did or not.
All right. I saw Cliff put his hand up, but then it went down, so.
Thanks, Chair Bongio. I just was going to try to answer the question when Director Ford's computer went down about whether it was appropriate to add a condition for the boundary survey. And as Commissioner O'Neill mentioned, that could be somewhat costly, but we would think that it would be appropriate. I think that what you would do if you do add that condition is that you would want to also specify what happens if somehow that shows that it's not meeting the 30-foot setback that is required.
And would that be appropriate for only the adjoining property owner in question here? It doesn't have to be the whole parcel.
Correct. Yes, if there's a concern about whether it's actually meeting that setback, I think it would just be that one property line that would be required under such a condition.
Director, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
You have anything to add to what Cliff had?
No, I think that the commission may want to fabricate a condition that would either require a survey or, as Commissioner O'Neill mentioned, have the property line identified in the field if there are pins or something that are placed out there that would verify the setback. I think Mr. Johnston's right.
I would feel much better if that was put in and on a condition on the motion.
How are you with that, Noah, since you were the one making the motion?
Well, I mean, I would like for us to be able to achieve consensus. I guess my feeling was that there wasn't necessarily grounds for adding that condition here. I mean, it was a reasonable question for the neighbor to ask, but maybe I should ask this question. Maybe the staff can give me a little guidance. I mean, is it unusual that we have this, in this instance, a cultivation site that is within that distance from a neighboring property line? As I understand it, it complies with the ordinance, but just barely by a margin of a foot. And if it's in fact the case that this is an unusually close cultivation to its neighboring parcel, and the neighboring parcel has raised a question about the boundary, then I suppose we might decide that it's warranted in this case. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm a little unsure that it is warranted, and that, that if we do this, it might set a precedent that every other neighbor wants to request this of the applicant, and I'm not so sure that would be fair or necessary. So I don't know if my question made sense, but are you able to give me any insight on how unusual or typical this case is?
Yeah, I will take a shot at it, and then Mr. Johnston can fill in if I miss anything. It's not all that uncommon for the setback for cannabis cultivation to be pretty close to the 30-foot limit. I think, as with anything else, you have hit on a really important point, and you're struggling with what is the burden of proof. Has a reasonable concern been raised that demands attention? And has something been said by the neighbor that would cause the commission to think that the property line is not correctly shown on the site plan? So it's really a question of if the commission is comfortable with the site plan and believes that it to be reasonably accurate and no evidence has been submitted to say to the contrary, then I would think that the commission could feel comfortable moving ahead without requiring a survey. If the commission feels and believes that there is reasonable evidence that's been presented that would cause doubt in terms of the veracity of the site plan and the location of the property lines, then it would be appropriate to require the survey. You
Yeah. If Jacob Perkins is still available, I'd allow him to speak at this time on this because it seems to be kind of a sticking point.
You got me?
Yes, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I believe the cultivation that is getting close to the property line, or within the, just outside the 30-foot boundary is proposed movement of some cultivation area that is to be moved. So there's actually no cultivation occurring that close to the property line from my understanding. And so I wouldn't even be able to survey it because there's nothing there now. If you follow me, it's a proposal of moving some of the cultivation area that needs to be moved. So there's actually nothing in that area that I believe would be the area you guys are talking about. So it would be easy to make sure it's, exactly where I said it is going to be because it's not even there yet, if you follow.
All right.
So a question for staff on that. I'm looking at the map and I see there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's quite a site right there. 31 feet is what it is on the right-hand side. If I'm looking at the map, APN 2018, page 14 of the report, am I looking at the right map?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so given what Mr. Perkins has said, if we can, maybe, is it possible to move that a little bit more off of that property line?
Would you not keep running through here?
Well, I think the short answer probably is yes, but the more complicated answer is for what purpose? I don't want to vacillate, but I do want to explore the tension that exists here.
Well, given the letter from the one of the estate holders, the deceased owner of that adjacent property, she states that she's not familiar with the property, who is owned by her father, who just passed away this past June. She just wants to make sure that it is not within that area. I think having maybe appropriate to look at existing pens, or if there's anything close over there, and then maybe if it could be worked, if that site is able to be moved, another 5 or 10 feet. I don't know what the topography of that site looks like, and that's what I'm asking about staff.
Yeah. I think that's, Commissioner Newman, that's one of the struggles I have. I mean, if the topo is correct on the site plan, the site's fairly flat. But I have not explored that. I don't know if Mr. Barton can speak to that, but I would hate to give you an answer about that without being sure.
And I don't have any additional information beyond what's in the site plan to confirm what Director Ford has said, that it appears to be fairly flat at that location.
Peggy, you have a question, so let you ask it, Mike.
I really feel that if the neighbor has an issue with her property boundary, that she needs to address that herself at her expense. I'm not trying to be callous, but my experience with some of these older properties, and I don't know when and if this was ever officially surveyed, is that sometimes it can go in the opposite direction, and you'll find that you might lose ground in a survey, and that some of these properties that are really old historical parcels or have been there for a number of years, they were never really surveyed that well. And if she has an issue or the trust has an issue, then I think that they should bear the expense. I don't think that you sometimes need to bring some of these issues up because, like I said, it could backfire on you. I've done a lot of work out there in some of these older properties, and they're just not what you think they are. In some cases, a house is not even on the right property. So it might be best just to leave it alone. And if the trust has a serious issue, then they need to go get a survey. Or then everyone needs to survey. You know, I mean, I don't think it's fair just because, you know, one person a problem that we open up a new can of worms that may end up being the reverse of what they want to find out.
Thank you, Peggy. I have my hand up, so I'm going to chime in. I agree with Peggy. It could go either way. This wasn't an issue till the neighbor brought it up. The only comment I'm going to really make about it is if this was any other kind of a project, if somebody was wanting to build a cabin out there, if they were wanting to do any kind of a structure, building department, I can almost guarantee you would ask to have property corners or property lines identified. So I don't know why it's so much different for this kind of a project than anything else, but I'm just saying, I mean, I've had in developed subdivisions where there are corners had building inspectors asked to have them verified and go that far. So, I mean, that's a lot different than what this is, but I'm just saying it would, if this wasn't cannabis, it probably would be a mandated thing. So I'll leave it at that. Thomas, I think you were first. Noah, you had your hand up too. I'm not sure who was first.
No, it was before me.
Okay, go ahead. Just go ahead, Thomas. You're up. You're speaking now.
Okay, just being as we're talking personal life experiences here, I know of something where a governmental agency has questioned the validity of a property line, and I'm out almost $6,000 to verify that, and 9 months of waiting for that survey to happen. So if we're going to put a condition of any surveying, give them at least a year or two is what I would say.
Okay. Noah.
Well, I'll just sort of bring it back to the motion and I'll reference what the director said. You know, I think there is a tension in knowing whether an additional condition is warranted or not, but I appreciate the clarity that the director gave when he said there are times when there's a real question of evidence or something about some real reason to believe that the site plan may be wrong or the boundary may be incorrect. I don't see that here. I see the neighbor or the neighbor's agent or executor asking a question and nothing more, and it wasn't really a statement that she thought there was anything wrong with it. But given that there's no evidence in the record that suggests that it is within the setback or that there's an error in the site plan, I personally am inclined to just stick with my motion, which did not add that as a condition.
And I'm fine by that.
So you're seconding that, Mike?
I'm fine by that. I think somebody else seconded it already.
I'm good as a seconder with Noah saying how you just said.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on it to keep it the way it is. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, Laura, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, before we move on to item number 4, we're going to...
Actually, we got to go to 2.
Oh, you're right. Before we go to 2, we're going to take a small break. We usually take one about this time. And so when we come back, we will take on item number 2. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Sorry, I'll screw that one up. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are going to go on to pulled item number 2 on the consent agenda. It's Full Moon Farms Incorporated conditional use permit and special permit in the Densmore area. And I believe that was pulled by Mr. Sawatsky, who said he just had a simple question for staff. So if you're there, Kent, I'm gonna let you ask that question so we don't have to go through a whole staff report. Are you there, Kent? Unmute yourself. Are you there? All right. Is there anybody else that wants to hear the staff report on this one? Anybody on the commission? Oh, there we go. That's Kent's number, 7454. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was downstairs and I didn't hear you come back on. Hopefully we can zip through these in about a tenth the time you took on the last project.
Right, that's what we're hoping to.
Small clarifications. I don't need a staff report on this one. I'm walking upstairs to get my note real quick here. You guys took a quick break there.
We're trying to get through everything tonight.
Well, damn well right. Let's get going on this thing. So, let's see. Excuse my damn there.
That's okay.
The anomaly on item number 2, and I have to move my one phone farther away here. What was basically, it doesn't show any ancillary uses on the statement in here. So that's my question: is there something here that's not shown in what we read when we read the summary? That's why it's kind of nice to have a template. Everything else lists ancillary, this one doesn't. So that is, I think, the only question I have is why there isn't any other. There was a spring diversion here. And again, just as far as clarity, is that spring diversion for this particular, I think 1.0 permit, is that have forbearance then? I think they had enough storage to be able to forbear. So anyway, let's see. Yeah. So does that have forbearance on that one? Those are the 2 questions on that one. I think they're quick ones.
All right. Could staff answer those questions for
Sure. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so this project is going to purchase clones from an offsite licensed nursery, so no ancillary propagation is proposed. And your other question, I apologize, was, forbearance. Yes, the applicant will adhere to forbearance requirements in their LSA and water right, and they do have enough water storage in order to do that.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Public 2223. Are you there? 222.
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Craig Johnson, and this applicant Nick from Full Moon Farms. He's a longtime cannabis farmer and just an outstanding operator. This farm came into his possession and control recently, and I know from Nick's history and his involvement in the community that he will see this farm through to its full potential and follow any guidelines that are set. I would move to just move this one along and approve it. And again, I can't say enough about Nick's character and about his ability to operate farms. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else that wishes to speak on this? Natalie DeLapp, go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. Natalie DeLapp, HCGA. Just want to echo Craig's statements. We support this project and also want to say thank you to Kent for these short and sweet comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring this back to the commission. And is there any questions of the commission? Or would somebody like to make a motion on this one so we can keep moving along?
Sure, Chair, I'll make the motion to find that the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted negative declaration for the commercial medical marijuana land use ordinance as described by section 15164 state secret guidelines, make all the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit and special permits, and approve the Full Moon Farms Inc. conditional use permit and special permits as recommended by staff, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Thomas.
I think this is a great project, but I don't see the findings to support condition number 9. So I'll be voting no because condition number 9, I do not believe there's findings to support that condition.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. Anybody else have any comments? All right. Seeing none. Laura, roll call vote, please.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
No, and I stated my reason earlier.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Was that a no, Peggy?
No, I said yes.
Oh, okay. I couldn't, you kind of broke up. Thank you.
I try to cut off so that you don't have to hear the background.
All right. Thank you. So motion carries 6-1. All right. That one's approved. Thank you, Laura, for the roll call vote. So that brings us to item number 4, the Emerald Kid Incorporated conditional use permit in the Willow Creek area. And this item was pulled, so I'm going to ask whoever pulled it if they have just a simple question for staff that can be answered. Go ahead, 5288.
Took longer for you guys to do roll call than for me to make my comments on the last one there. Just thought I'd point that out. This is a project that was brought to my attention because I have property in the area, so I was given notification. And the only thing I have here, I think maybe something probably in the best interest of the applicant is not correct in the statement here. And maybe you can correct me, but it's to allow for farm-based retail sales to tourists already on site and retail sales off-site through delivery or off-site pickup. So if they're doing off-site delivery or off-site pickup, somebody's coming and going from that project to do that, to facilitate that is what I can see happening here. The other thing is they're going to have a tour. Now, if you have a tour where you do not sell your product, I think you'll have less people showing up. So I think part of the reason they're going to sell their product is they will have more people on their tour, which again would increase traffic is anticipated. And I'm not asking for a traffic study, but I sure would like to see as a condition in here so we know how much effect that has on traffic. If you were willing to have if the applicant was willing to do a little bit of a traffic survey just to see what kind of traffic he had before he had his retail sales and doing his offsite delivery and after. There'll be other projects like this coming forward. It seems to be the future of this. And it would be nice for you guys to know the impact without having a formal traffic study. Just an informal one might give us that information. Other than that, I haven't had any complaints from any people I know in the neighborhood regarding the Emerald Kid project there. And so I'm not making an objection. That appears to be an inaccuracy to me as far as a statement goes. And it'd be nice to have some kind of a traffic study, just if the Emerald Kid people were willing to do it. That's all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this one.
Thank you, Kent. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this one? Go ahead, Madeline. Madeline DeLapp, go ahead.
Okay, there it goes. Good evening, Commissioners. Madeline DeLapp, Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Just want to give our strong support for Lucas Sanders, the Emerald Kid, and this project. This is a cutting edge project that is going to be the first on-site farm sales in Humboldt County mixed with tourism. So this is the winery model that many of us have been talking about and anticipating for years as we've come into legalization. This project was very thoroughly discussed as the tourism was brought forward maybe a year ago, some period of time ago. Traffic was discussed. I think that a lot of it was addressed. And just want to say, please approve this project. It's been great working with Lucas over the last couple of years, and I think that he really adds a lot of value and benefit to our industry.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this one? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. And what's the thoughts of the commission? Do they have any questions, or somebody like to make a motion? And everybody jump at once.
Well, I'll jump then first.
You might.
I think this does look like a great project. It would be nice if the applicant could maybe keep a informal traffic count, car count. That would help anyway in retail sales for before and after. But I would like to make the motion, find the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted environmental impact report for the CCLUO as described by section 15164. The state CEQA guidelines, to make all the required findings for approval of conditional use permit modification and and approve the Emerald Kid Inc. conditional use permit modification as recommended by staff, subject to recommended conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. We have a motion, a second. I see Noah has his hand up, so go ahead, Noah.
Oh, sure. I was just going to jump in and say, I like the motion. I definitely like this project a lot, and I don't want to burden it with additional conditions, but I thought Kent's suggestion was a reasonable one. So I would sort of second what Mike just said in leading to his motion. And without requiring it as a condition, I would ask the applicant if he's willing, as a favor to the department, to informally generate some data about any change of traffic going forward, since, as it's already been noted, this is, I think, a precursor of some other projects that are going to be coming our way in future, and it would be good to have that information if we could get it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Laura, a roll call vote.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Abstain.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
and Thomas Mulder.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Motion carries 5-0 with one abstention. So, or 6-0. I'm sorry, 6. Got to be better at my math. All right. So we'll move on to the next item. And that is item number 5, David Thomas conditional use permit and special permit in the Whitethorn area. And we will see the attendees. Public 5288. Is there a simple question you have on this one?
This one, Chair, I think it would be beneficial for staff to give a presentation on this.
Okay, then we'll do that. We'll have a staff presentation. Thanks for that, Director.
Mr. Chair, can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm seeing.
Oh, you're seeing the other one? Okay, hang on.
Small. I'm just getting the phone line signal. There we go.
Okay. Second. So this project is for David Thomas. Record number PLN 12196. Sorry, I introduced myself. My name is Byron Turner. I'm presenting this project for David Thomas, conditional use permit 12196 on assessor's parcel numbers 221-201-022 and 221-171-042 in the Whitethorn area. This proposed project is a conditional use permit for outdoor cannabis cultivation in 6 greenhouses utilizing light deprivation techniques. There will be 1,200 square feet of propagation with separate greenhouses. Drying and processing both occur on site with 3 separate structures totaling 830 square feet. The amount of cultivation requested by the applicant was more than pre-existing cultivation amounts determined for 2015. So planning staff is requesting that the commission allow for a revised resolution and conditions of approval to reflect the planning staff recommendation to approve 12,033 square feet. Planning staff met with the applicant and both parties agreed that the reduction in square feet footage from what was proposed. The project also includes a special permit for development within a streamside management area for continued use and maintenance of a point of diversion on an adjacent parcel. Power is provided by PG&E with portable generators as a backup only. This slide shows the location of the project, the access road shown by the yellow line. It's Council Madrone Road from the intersection with Eddersburg Honeydew Road. The road evaluation in attachment 3 of the staff report indicates the road can accommodate traffic associated with the project. There are no known special status species shown on the CNDDB for the subject parcel. The nearest spotted owl activity center is 2.41 miles from the project site. However, noise and light attenuation measures are nevertheless included as conditions of approval. A relocation of historic cultivation areas was recommended to move cultivation out of stream buffers. Remediation includes removal of pots and cultivation-related spoils from the decommissioned cultivation area. As a condition of approval, the applicant will be required to implement all remaining corrective actions detailed in the restoration plan. The project utilizes approximately 120,000 gallons annually. Water for irrigation currently is provided by a pointed diversion from the Mattole River on an adjacent parcel. The applicant is proposing a 292,000 gallon rainwater catchment pond on the southern project parcel in the northwestern portion of the parcel. According to the WebGIS, slopes in this area are less than 50%, and planning staff supports development of the off-stream pond to reduce reliance on the surface water diversion from the river. There was one comment letter received on Tuesday, February 15th. It was provided to the Planning Commission. The comment letter raised concerns regarding sensitive species, use and stability of the access road, and location of water tanks in relation to the river near potential wetlands. Although no special status species were mapped in the database, staff assumed presence and included those light and attenuation noise and light attenuation measures as we spoke of before as conditions of approval. These conditions are consistent with the recommendations made with potential for habitat that were developed with CDFW. Planning staff went on to the subject. Planning staff also went to the subject parcel to assess the access road and potential for wetlands. No wet areas were observed near the water tanks. Water tanks on APN 221-201-044 are associated with another approved permit. According to the restoration plan, the water tanks are located up on developed land and are on level ground. The site plans the location of the water tanks in the central portion of the parcel outside the stream setbacks. Conditions of approval require the applicant to adhere to the recommendations of the WRPP. This map is showing Council Madrone Road from its intersection with Edwardsburg-Honeydew Road. Based on planning staff's assessment of the access road, improvements to stabilize the road have occurred since 2017. The green portion of the road was in good condition and does not need additional improvements. The red portion of the road may need improvements. Planning staff requests the Planning Commission allow for revised conditions of approval to include a requirement for the applicant to form or join a road maintenance association for improvements and maintenance to Council Madrone Road. Additionally, planning staff requests that another condition that requires processing to be offsite until the road improvements are completed. This slide shows the water tanks on APN 221-171-044 that are associated with another approved permit. This concludes our presentation. Planning staff is available for any questions. It is the Planning Department's recommendation that the Planning Commission has considered, find that the Planning Commission has considered the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration, make all the required findings for the conditional use permit and special permit based on the evidence in the staff report, and adopt the resolution approving the amended conditional use permit and special permit for David Thomas, subject to the amended conditions of approval. I'm available for any questions, and I believe the applicant and agent are here as well.
Thank you, Brian. Is there any questions for Brian?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding the email or the letter that was sent in on February 15th from the neighbor, the concerns about the mudslide easement, with it being impassable for 4 months, and the pictures that were shown on that. I didn't catch what was applied, if anything, on the recommended conditions of approval that were directly related to that. Was that spoken of there rather?
You know, I neglected to point out, I'm going to share my screen again to show the map. Let's see here. And staff did visit the site today, but I wanted to point out this map that shows the location of the landslide. It is on the area of the road that planning staff does recommend that improvements take place, and that that road maintenance agreement occur. But you can see it's not near the, it's not on the parcel in question. It's partially leading up to it.
Is it to do with anything to do with the applicant?
I don't believe there's any evidence for that.
So, okay, there was no evidence that anything that the applicant has done caused that slide to occur. Is that what you're saying?
Staff has not come to any conclusion that that was the result. Yeah.
And the requirements are in what number here? Attachment 2, 1.
Well, we're requesting a revised condition be added to require the applicant to form or join Road Maintenance Association that would work with a qualified registered engineer to address that portion of the road and do the improvements. Therefore, with processing occurring offsite and no additional employees until that portion of the road is addressed.
So that is the additional requirement?
That is what we're suggesting would be a revision to the conditions of approval.
And how many different owners live along this road?
That is a good question. Let me take a look.
Because road maintenance means you have everybody that's in that.
Yeah, it would include all users of the road. Cliff may have that information. We're also in the language can include, if the commission wishes, that if the applicant is unable to form or join the road maintenance association, that the improvements have to be completed at the cost of the applicant.
Okay, I'm just curious how many different parcel owners go along that road and if there is an existing road maintenance in place or not.
Through the chair, Commissioner Newman, I apologize. My GIS has not been able to work today, so I'm not able to look at that. However, my recollection from looking at that earlier was that there are very few parcels that come off of this road, especially after the project parcel. In fact, I believe that the property owners that sent the email, and I suspect they may be calling in to talk and can confirm this, but I believe they may be the only property owners that are after this project parcel on that road.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy, I see you have your hand up.
Could you clarify, you talked about there's another approved permit and that water's coming from another APN. Is that permit owned by the applicant and the other APN owned by the applicant?
It's my understanding the permit is held by the applicant.
And what about the other APN that's a water source? Did I hear that?
Yes, I believe so. Let me check the water right. I think would be somewhere I can look without the property owner information right in front of me.
Noah, do you have a simple question why Meg is looking that up?
Yes, well, actually one of them is for Megan.
Okay, we'll
so maybe
wait.
I'll wait, yeah.
The water right is issued to the applicant on the adjacent parcel.
So how does that work? Do they buy water from their neighbor, or their neighbor just agrees to give it to them? I'm a little confused.
So on the water right, the water right allows for water for irrigation on 2 separate parcels. So that's the part of the appropriative right to move it to another parcel. So the water right has the point of diversion, and in this case would be POD2, purpose of use, irrigation. And that would be, and then the subject parcel is cited. If that helps at all.
Quick question, I'm looking at that versus POD2 versus POD1. POD1 is labeled with irrigation use. POD2 is domestic use. It's page 16 is the site plan I'm looking at.
I'll take a look at the site plan. I'm looking at the water right, which does talk about the purpose and places of use for irrigation. But I will double check also on the site plan how they have listed it. I think ultimately the project ends up with rainwater catchment and diversion for domestic use only. There, the executive summary, there is a point of diversion on an unnamed stream in the southern portion of the parcel used for domestic use.
That answer your question, Mike? Noah, go ahead with the question.
Thank you, Chair Bongio. I'll try to keep this brief, but I have 3 separate questions. Hopefully they can be quick. One, just to clarify, we've discussed the landslide along the road. I can see that it is not on the subject parcel, but my understanding is that that landslide took place on an adjacent parcel which is owned by the same owner as the subject parcel, and that's why it was made an issue. The handling of the landslide was made an issue by the neighbor. Is that correct?
I will have to look up the parcel ownership information of the neighboring parcel before I can answer that question.
Okay, well, and maybe it may become clear when we take public comment, but just a couple of other quick ones. Ms. Ryan, I noted in the staff report that you had reached out to Department of Fish and Wildlife just on February 1st of this year, noting that you hadn't received any response to the referral and asking if they had any comments or concerns. Just want to ask if you heard anything back from them.
Not on this. I don't recall on this specific one that they had written back.
Okay, I mean, that seems sort of relevant given the assertions or concerns raised by the neighboring parcel owner about special status species that they've seen. I just was curious if we had any word at all from DFW. And finally, okay, go ahead.
Let's see, I'm looking at my email right as you're talking
okay, sure.
to see what I got. So Yes, I did get a response, and there were no comments regarding this project associated with the response I received.
Okay. Well,
So
thank you for
acknowledgement of receipt that I tried.
Yeah, I appreciate that you did go ahead and reach out to them since you hadn't received anything as of a few weeks ago. That was good on your part to just sort of cover our behind, as it were. And my final question was just about, I was trying to get my head around the water uses and sources as well. I did understand that there are 2 diversions and that one of them on a class 3 stream was for domestic purposes only and not relevant here. But the other diversion that has been used for irrigation in the past is from the Matole. And so I have 2 questions about that. One, there was something, I was a little unclear, but there was something about having switched from an intake pipe in the river to a shallow well near to the river in the floodplain, which would be just a different way of taking Matole water, as I guess. But is that in effect? Is it in fact a well versus a direct diversion from the river? And then the other question that's more important to me is, are they going to be continuing to rely on the diversion from the Matole River for some reason, even after the rainwater storage, rainwater catchment pond is in place, the proposed rainwater catchment? Or is that going to go away, as it were?
Can answer the second question first, which would be that I believe we did not say you cannot use the point of diversion. So that is currently not a condition. If the commission would like to add that as a condition, there would be sufficient water in the pond. However, it appears that it may be utilized. My sense would be if the pond isn't full or not meeting their water need, but we did not restrict the use of that once the pond's put in.
Okay, so it's allowing that as a sort of backup source, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Levy, through the chair, I'm looking at the LSAA issued by CDFW, and it does state that there was the point of diversion for irrigation that was a spring box in the center of the channel. That was a submersible pump in the Matole River, and that was replaced in 2018 with the shallow well that you're talking about. So that under the LSAA, that says that shallow well was actually replacing the submersible pump.
Got it. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I don't see any more hands, I'm going to open this up for public comment. So, first public is 5288.
I'm having I was having a hard time. I was on number 6 and it wasn't sounding like it was. I think I'm pulling the ones I'm pulling so Madeline can speak here tonight, which is fine. I do. This is very troublesome, what we have here. It doesn't, when is this catchment pond supposed to be done? They have enough storage, 130,000 gallons to do their annual water usage of 123.60. Hopefully, if they are using this point of diversion, then that is has already been pulled and their tanks are full. I know many creeks, and I don't know about this particular river, but this is a very impaired water area as far as I'm concerned. And a condition should be, that those tanks are full now and they have full thing for the year, not wait till March or anything if they're going to use that at all. But the catchment pond should be in by next year, so that should no longer be an issue. I would definitely put a condition in here that as soon as the catchment pond is, that they completely remove and remediate and restore to its prior condition the Matole inlet or water box or whatever they have, shallow thing in that particular area. I don't see any reason for that to be there to be tempting or for any reason, to be used. This is just one of those rivers there that just should not be tapped in that manner. Should never. It says that it's currently sourced from a point of diversion on an adjacent parcel. But normally when you have this, you also have a permit number and things. And I'm not seeing the permit number here. I guess possibly it's there, but it's not showing up on what I'm looking at here. Major concerns on the water, and I see no reason to ever consider taking water directly out of or adjacent to or even hydrologically connected in any way, shape, or form to Mattel River. That's just my input on this particular one.
Thank you, Kent. Next caller is Holly Carter. *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, apologies about that. I pushed the wrong button just then. I pushed stay muted. Hi, this is Holly Carter. I do work with Oxalis and I work with the applicant on this project. I did not begin this application, which started in December of 2016 under 1.0. They've been working diligently since then and are now in their extension of an LSA on this project. So we're all the work has been completed and they're just working towards the goal of the pond replacement. One question that I wanted to clarify from the presenter and just make sure that it's in front of the commission in the correct way is that the square footage that I heard in the presentation and that we had heard from staff previously was the 12,033. And I wanted to make sure that that's what's reflected in the resolution. And then I just want to throw a nod out there that when there is residents on site, this property is adjacent to a property also permitted by the same applicant. They function together and requiring offsite processing for the long term, could actually increase traffic with the on-site staff being able to do processing. I'll let the applicant speak to that himself if he feels any other concerns, but doing some on-site processing actually could reduce traffic rather than needing to bring in trucks to take things out and in. So that is, I think, all that I need to say about that, but we're here and the applicant's on the phone and he'll be able to answer those questions if needed. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work done on this project. It's been a long journey. Here we are still working on these 1.0 applications. It is being reviewed obviously under 2.0, but thank you.
Okay, David Thomas. Go ahead. David.
Hello.
There we go.
Hello. Hi. Just wanted to answer a couple questions. One about the landslide. Earlier he was asking about it. I've been out there since 91, 92, and it's been sliding every year. It's just a really bad spot long before the growing started. And we used to have to shovel our way out all the time. And so it's been an issue. Then we had a bigger slide in 2017. I fixed it. It cost us quite a bit of money. She didn't take any pictures today. I wish she would have, but it's all grassed in. All those pictures that they sent in their combined packet were pictures of the slide itself, and it's been fixed and regrown and hasn't slid since 2017. So we fixed that issue, and I just wanted to let you know about that. And then also they were asking about how many people are on the road. It's us, the complaining neighbors next to us, and then one more next to them. So there's three of us on that road. 4 or 5 if you include people before me, but as far as myself and to the end, there's 3 of us. And so we just the big one I want to put across is when the slide happened, we handled it. It had nothing to do with the grow up top. It's just a really, tricky site that we've had forever. And as a good neighbor, I fixed it and didn't even ask them for any kind of compensation or anything. So it's all been good neighborly things happening. I just want to make sure you don't think this is someone that didn't take care of a problem. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any other public that would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment.
Alan, could I ask a question of David Thomas?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers to the question about the landslide and the parcel owners. Just about the water source and the diversion that is in the Matol River or using a well right next to the Matol. Can you clarify I understand that you've been relying on that Mattole River diversion for cultivation to this point, and that the rainwater catchment pond is not in place yet. But when the rainwater catchment pond is in place, will you discontinue use of the Mattole River water or the Mattole diversion for irrigation? Or if you are going to keep that as a backup or possible alternative source, will the diversion take place only during the wet season, subject to a forbearance agreement? That's my question.
Are the applicant still there? Can you answer that?
Sorry about that. How about now? You got me?
Yeah, we're hearing you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So what it is it's two adjacent parcels. I got the first permit first based on what was coming out of the river for the connected parcel below that. And then we were able to combine the two on the permitting for the second one. But once that pond is in, yeah, we wouldn't use below at all. We would, I would still hope to be able to use below for the already permitted property that we were approved on. But as far as the new property up top, we would just strictly use the pond. And then yes, we always, I think we have an April 1st forbearance, or they've been cutting us off pretty early for sure.
Thank you for those answers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thomas,
thank you, guys.
Stay with us. There may be more questions. Go ahead, Thomas.
This isn't for the applicant, it's just for staff. I'm just confused as far as the forbearance, not just on this project, but any project that diverts. I believe they all have to sign an agreement with State Water Board of when their right to divert is. And that's always, I don't know of any cannabis cultivation that's allowed to divert during the dry season.
Yes, that's generally my understanding. It's complicated, but there's we have the ordinance that talks about storage, the CDFW comments, or how long the forbearance period can be. The CDFW comments talk about when the diversion should cease due to stream conditions. And then there's also the state cannabis policy, which is April to October. So of the multiple levels of regulation, I believe the state cannabis policy really has the longest forbearance period that's expected of the cultivators.
Thank you. The director just informed me that he has some pictures of the slide that they took today or in the last few days that he'd like to share. So
Cliff, you want to go ahead and show those?
Okay, you should be seeing the photos here, the before, which was, I think, the photo that was submitted with the email. And then this is on the right, the photo of the same area that was taken today. There are some other photos showing the road, just not this particular area. These are the only photos of the landslide area.
thank you. All right. Give back the screen.
Would you like me to show? Oh, there we go.
I just wanted to get back the screen so I could see is there any questions for Cliff or the director after seeing those pictures or anything? Go ahead, Peggy.
What are the plans? I mean, that road needs some serious rock on it. It looks pretty bad to me now. The slide may not look as bad, but the roads look, pretty muddy. What is, and this is for the applicant, what are the plans to improve the road as a part of this road association? I mean, you might be the only one in the association. So what is the plan?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead, Dave. Yep.
Yeah. We were just in the process of rocking as we speak, and we know the importance of the road. So yeah, we're definitely up for for keeping it up. We've brought the road around tremendously, you know, since we've all started, even years before we started this project. The road's come along a lot. We've put a lot of money into it, and I think we're pretty close. Like you said, rock is about what we need right now, and that's where we're at with it. We're hitting it with some rock. But we got culverts in. We've got all kind of, you know, we fixed the road really, really a lot since we started this project.
Thomas Mulder, go ahead. Thomas?
Sorry, I got muted again somehow. I don't know. This is for staff. Thank you for the before and after pictures. I'm trying to look through, is there any plans to do any rock armoring on that slide or anything like that? Just seeing the after, I think there's a lot of good work that's been done, but I'm just, I'm trying to tear through the SMP or whatever this plan is to figure out what's going on there.
Sure. The SMP really speaks to the internal roads on the parcel. And so you may not find road improvement suggestions regarding the access road. So we are proposing recommending an added condition of approval for the applicant to join or form a road maintenance association, which would evaluate the road and complete the improvements as a condition.
And did I hear earlier when that added condition was being presented, is it an engineer would do that?
As I have a draft language together right now, and I did include that the evaluation would be conducted by a registered professional engineer.
Okay, that would take away my concern of that slide. So then professional on the ground. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none. Does anybody like to make an attempt at a motion on this one?
Sure. I would make a motion. I don't think there's any need, given what I've heard and the discussion of the issues raised, to propose any additional conditions that are not already recommended by staff, including some that they've just added after the staff report was drafted. So with that said, I move that we find the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted MND for the CMM-LUO as described by section 15164 of the state CEQA guidelines, make all of the required findings for approval of the CUP and special permit, and adopt the resolution approving the David Thomas project as recommended by staff, subject to all of its recommended conditions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We're questioned about changing the square footage to 12,033. And are you adding the road maintenance assessment?
Well, yeah, perhaps I should have clarified, but since that was presented to us by staff as their recommendation that the applicant form or seek to form a road maintenance association, I was including that in my motion, or intending to. And likewise, the corrected square footage amount that was spoken of earlier.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mike.
I saw Cliff's hand go up and then it went away. So did you want to comment on anything, Cliff? Or
Sure, thanks, Chair Bongio. I was just going to ask for some clarification relative to that condition, because that was not in the packet that the commissioners have. That's something that I don't think you have seen yet and has only been added as a suggestion verbally. So I just wanted to make sure that that was captured.
Okay, so yeah, let me be clear in my motion that when I said including the recommended staff conditions, I want to add the additional recommended condition pertaining to the creation of a road maintenance association.
As described by staff verbally tonight.
Yes. Great.
Okay.
Thomas, are you good with that?
Yes, I thought that's what he meant by his first motion. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Thank you for cleaning up. Thanks for cleaning up the ambiguities in my motion.
Meg, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. To clarify the revised, so I couldn't pull it up fast enough if I tried, but the revised resolution or conditions would include the update of the square footage to the 12,033, the road maintenance association as discussed, and then also I had drafted a condition regarding the processing offsite and no additional employees or no employees on site as a way to reduce potential traffic impacts on the road until the road improvements are completed. And so these are suggested additions that we have put together.
Are the motion and the second good with those?
Okay, I actually totally forgot about the offsite processing one. That was, I mean, in general, I am inclined to go along with staff's recommendations, but that's the one that I believe the agent Holly Carter was concerned about and thought that that might, in fact, that requirement might generate additional traffic due to requiring the movement of product to be processed. But, you know, that said, if staff feels that that condition is warranted, I would be happy to support adding it, if the second is.
Just clarification on that. From what I took of that, as soon as they fix the road, then they're allowed to have on-site processing. Was that correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Okay, I'm good with that then. That's
Okay.
fair.
Sure, that sounds fair to me then. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, with Laura, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ellen Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Motion carries unanimous. All right. So that brings us on to item number 6, Reed Mountain Farms LLC conditional use permit in the Bembo area. And I believe this was pulled by public. And let's, come on, open up. Yeah, 5288. Go ahead.
Let's get through this one really quickly if we can. Basically, my question on this one was, and again, I usually do anomalies, and for such a small grow, we had, I was corrected, it was 7 employees for an acre grow. This one is 1,600, and yet they have 9 employees here. It says, and also regarding the power here, is proposing to transition to PG&E. Is that a condition then that's built in there prior to the 2025 season, since that's what they're proposing? I assume they have faith they can do that. Again, we are on a generator here, and you know, I think with about any generator, you could find it's in the public finding would be public health, safety, and welfare would be all those generators were to be enclosed in a non-combustible structure of some type to preclude fire. And the other caveat that I highly recommend you have, from what I've seen, a good share of the testimony from fire departments and things, have been that these generators are frequently running and not attended. In other words, I think a condition again would be in the public health, safety, and welfare, and a finding could easily be made that there be somebody in attendance should there be a fire. So those two conditions, I wouldn't feel you would be uncomfortable, especially with what the supervisor said to you. They said they wanted you to have findings for any of these changes you made. They didn't say you couldn't make any changes that you felt were appropriate as conditions on these things. You were given leeway as far as you can find a finding, basically, that is. And I think in dealing with generators, that finding could easily be made because of the history that we've had in testimony from fire departments and other people, and the potential danger of these things. And the last thing we want to have is have fires out there. So I think that does mitigate that, and I recommend you think about making that finding and having those conditions on any generator, that it be in a non-combustible situation there. Just a thought for you.
All right. Thank you. The next caller is ETA Humboldt. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Valare, and I'm the consultant on this project. So I just wanted to address his concerns real quick. About the employees, we did state that there could be up to 9 employees seasonally. There are 1 to 3 employees year round, but my client puts out a high quality hand trimmed product, and sometimes he needs more trimmers on site to facilitate getting the product trimmed on time. For the PG&E, we actually already have our permit application in. We've been working with DTN Engineering since 2019 with PG&E to get the power there, and we're very confident that we're going to have our power drop by 2025. The generator is enclosed in a non-combustible structure as of now. There are fire extinguishers, and there is always someone on site present when the generator is running. I think that's everything. I think that addresses the concerns. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. And see if I can get that to switch. There we go. Is there any questions of the commission, or would somebody like to make a go at a motion?
I just want to note that that was the most efficient asking of questions and getting them answered in a germane way that we've ever had. That was terrific.
Yes.
Thank you, Vanessa. And thanks, Kent.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion on this one? Everybody's so quiet tonight.
Well, they're not showing their faces except for Noah and I, so.
And we keep making the motions.
Your night. Flip for it.
If you want to see my face, you can see my face. I just get tired of looking at myself.
All right, one of you guys make a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mel. Or Peggy. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Laura, roll call vote, please.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. All right. So that gets us back to old business. And the last item on it was proposed communications facilities ordinance. We'll take a staff report, please.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
And can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Keenan Hilton. I'm with the Long Range Planning Division, and I am pleased to present this evening the much anticipated draft wireless telecommunications facilities ordinance. A couple notes before we start. I expect the presentation to take about 25 minutes. Also, as you may have noticed in the packet, there are a couple significant changes in the draft ordinance from what's been included in previous packets, though of course it has not been heard. The most significant of which is that we've integrated proposed regulations from Public Works, which will regulate the deployment of small cell within county right-of-way. Second, we've also responded to some very helpful comments from a number of the different commenting agencies and also from the public company Crown Castle. I'll highlight these comments at the end of the presentation. I also want to call your attention to the fact that we actually have two unresolved issues. The first and most significant of which is that we received recently comment from the Department of Aviation, Humboldt County Department of Aviation, and they are still studying the potential safety concerns relating to small cell wireless, i.e. 5G in proximity to county airports. You may have seen in the news, there have been some reports and some concerns, and they are looking into that to be able to provide us with concrete guidance. The second is that we're still nailing down how these regulations interface with underground districts within the county. So what we're actually recommending tonight is that the Planning Commission receive the presentation, hear public comment, provide any questions, comments, direction, and then continue this item to one of the scheduled meetings in March. And at the end, Director Ford can help identify which meeting. And with that, I will start the presentation. So first is a brief roadmap. First, I'll cover just briefly why a new ordinance now. Next, I'll give an overview of the regulatory arena that we are entering into, including a description of what small cell wireless is, non-small cell wireless, as well as the shot clocks that we have to function within. I'll summarize the existing county regulations, and then I will provide a description of the draft ordinance, highlighting the tiered permitting approach, and then also the public comments that we've received before getting to the recommendation. So, needless to say, telecommunications are central to all of our lives. It already exists here in Humboldt County. Many of us take advantage of these services every single day. They're integrated into many aspects of our lives. In Humboldt County, many have good access. You see on the left the locations of cell towers within the county, and then on the right you see highlighted in deep green is what can be considered broadband service, and then in the others you see where there is partial or probably slow coverage that would not qualify as broadband. So many within Humboldt have good access, but of course there are many residents and businesses that are underserved, and there are unmet needs. Improving coverage and capacity of cell services would have significant effects on economic development, education, healthcare, emergency services, and standard of living. The telecommunications element in the general plan provides us with standards, policies, and implementation measures. It references a study which reports that residents of Humboldt County want more planning, more access and coverage, more competition and affordability, and more reliability, among other values. There are, of course, very large forces at play nationally, internationally, and those forces are here locally. Telecommunication companies. There is demand for new facilities, and we only expect that demand to grow as telecommunications become more and more central to our daily lives. And now the market is heading in a new direction, the 5th generation cell service, or 5G. Tonight, I'll be referring to 5G as small cell facilities. That's the name of the type of facility that offers that service. This represents a pivot in the industry overall, and that's from growing the range in general. So, over the past 20 years, the primary focus of the industry has been to add new cell towers in a wide variety of locations. Now, really, the pivot of the industry is towards, in the places where there is the highest demand, increasing the capacity in those areas. And so 5G represents it can transfer way more data than other types of cell towers. So to meet the public need, to respond to evolution in state and federal regulations, which I'll summarize, and then to have intentional local influence over the placement and aesthetics of these facilities, those are the reasons why we are bringing forward a draft ordinance tonight. So now to zoom out to the federal level, I can't offer a truly exhaustive summary this evening. There is a lot. The written staff report includes some additional information to this, but I'll hit some of the highlights. This is important, quite frankly, because the federal agencies define the scope of what a local jurisdiction may do. And the FCC has taken an approach to regulating all cell service, and in particular, the next generation 5G, with local jurisdictions viewed more or less as obstacles to the goal of widespread deployment. Their efforts largely are to kind of preempt local authority, paving the way for installation of facilities. I think that you might understand this as being analogous to what the state of California, the approach that the state took to ADUs, where they really just kind of told local jurisdictions a lot of what you had to do. The same thing is going on here. It began in 1996 with the Telecommunications Act. There's a lot in the act. One key piece is that it establishes the Federal Communications Commission as the national authority on setting radio frequency limits. I know that radio frequency has been an issue raised by many members of the public in the past. There is concern about it. The fact of the matter is, state and local governments do not have jurisdiction over radio frequencies, and we cannot govern that. We may not deny a project on that basis. More recently, there was an FCC declaratory ruling and third report of order. This was covering 5G, or what I'll call small cell wireless facilities. In several ways, it continues the trend of kind of hemming in what local governments may regulate. We still may not look at RF exposure. And then also, very significantly, they add shot clocks. And these are short time periods in which local governments must make a decision on a project or a batch of projects. And if a decision is not made within the window, the permit is deemed granted. They also set up maximum application fees. So what are small cell wireless facilities? What do they look like? This is a contrast. Small cell wireless facilities, by definition, are quite low profile. The most common deployment is on existing facilities in the public right-of-way, and you see that here on the left, that this at the top, that is the antenna. And so in this case, I think that the additional equipment box is hidden behind one of the signs. But anyway, the point is these things are small, and they typically provide service. It's about like 500 feet line of sight. So we're talking pretty small cells here that are receiving service from these antennas. Non-small is basically everything else. And generally right now we're talking about the 4th generation towers, which come in a wide variety of sizes and designs. Technically, anything that doesn't fit the strict definition of a small cell facility is a non-small. In addition to towers like this, you may remember seeing some different designs for non-small facilities. So there is a very specific definition of small cell wireless facilities. They're mounted on structures 50 feet or less in height, no more than 10% taller than adjacent structures. The facilities themselves do not extend the height of the structure to more than 50 feet or by more than 10%. Each antenna is no more than 3 cubic feet in volume. So again, quite small. All equipment associated with the existing and proposed antenna, not including the antenna, is no more than 28 cubic feet in volume. So 3 feet cubed about. And then the non-small is all other facilities. So here, I'm going to give a brief overview of the shot clocks. And these are federal guidelines, and state law makes all of these it's deemed granted after this many days in all cases. A shot clock starts when the applicant completes the first step in the application process. So for instance, if we were to require an application assistance meeting, that's when the shot clock would start ticking. We must bring it to decision within the time frame. And these are very tight. There are some ways that we can address this. The first is just having objective, clear criteria that will allow applicants to know exactly what they have to provide and provide staff with a very clear basis for approval or denial. We also have the potential to toll a shot clock by entering into a written agreement that would be if there are deficiencies that are clearly identified. Our biggest asset, however, is just having a streamlined process. So having it be just a really clear process to be able to get these things in and out if they are complete, as quickly as possible. These are timeframes that do not allow for us to do CEQA review. Thankfully, these are projects that really are pretty minor in nature. Eligible facilities, this is a class of facility that is co-location of new equipment on existing equipment, removal of equipment or replacement of equipment. So this, again, minor activities, and obviously doesn't need to receive CEQA analysis. And then other co-locations of small cell wireless facilities, that's mounting or installing an antenna on an existing tower, building, or structure. And that's a key part is that the co-location in this case is not necessarily on an existing cell tower, but it can be on just any structure. The environmental analysis has been done at the federal level, and the conclusion is that—
Hey, Keenan, we lost your volume.
Oh, sorry. Let's see here. All right, fix that. Still can't hear me very well.
Hear you. You just got a little quieter.
Okay. Is it better now, or is it still quiet?
Yeah.
That's better.
That seems better.
Okay. Thanks, Director Ford. But something that's, of course, really worth highlighting is that the status quo rules that we have right now in the county don't allow us to meet these timeframes in many cases. So it is critical that we redefine the county process, especially for these lower impact projects, to be able to retain some degree of local control over placement and aesthetics. So a ministerial process and a process with design review with clear objective standards is our pathway to meeting those. Oh, did I already go over this?
No.
Or
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I was clicking the wrong way. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to provide a quick summary of what the current regulations are, how we've been processing these things. In the inland zone, cell towers have been considered a quasi-public use. This is a section of code that applies to such uses as like fraternal halls. I think perhaps churches might also fit in, and cell towers have been included in this. And it's about a paragraph long. And the process has just been in these zones, which are commercial zones, industrial zones, residential, I think that's apartment professional, agriculture general, an unincorporated zone, that if it's within the height limits, if it meets the setbacks, then you just need to get a building permit and a radio frequency study. And if not, it's a conditional use permit. There's nothing about the selection of these zones that was thought out in relation to cell towers specifically. It has been the way that we've been able to get some of them approved. Also, in the inland code, and this is a piece that is a bit confused, it actually is an enumerated allowable use in timberland production zone, which has made timberland production zone a very popular option for the location of cell towers, because timberland production zone also does not have a maximum height limit. So the result has been that a lot of cell towers have gone in TPZ lands, and all that has been required has been a building permit and a radio frequency study. And so, this gives a rough idea of how much of Humboldt County is TPZ. And this includes all of the areas, it's TPZ, and also the areas that are listed in quasi-public. So currently, these are the places where it's theoretically possible to build a cell tower with a building permit only. Now, in the coastal zone, the regulations are a bit more clear, and currently communication transmission facilities are considered minor generation and distribution facilities. These are the enumerated allowable zones, or the zones where it is enumerated and allowable with a conditional use permit. It's internally consistent, but it's not consistent with the inland, and it does not require any pathway that would be able to meet the short time frames. So reasons to update the regulations. Aesthetics, there aren't currently any guidelines for aesthetics. Protecting resource lands. Perhaps in some cases, these cell towers may not align with the purpose of the resource zones, most notably timberland production zone. Follow the federal rules. Protect residential zones. R4 was one of the ones listed in quasi-public. And then increase the clarity. These new regulations will provide the public, staff, and decision makers with just something far clearer to work with. So quickly, I will summarize the general plan, what it has to say about telecommunications. This, of course, is what guided the development of the ordinance. First is deployment and availability. We want broadband to be available to all. We want it to reliably connect Humboldt County to national networks. It's going to be hopefully integrated into new buildings and developments, and that's the approach that we are taking. And an orderly planning and appropriate development of communication facilities within the county. All right, so the new draft ordinance. It's an incentive-based permitting process. There is additional review for facilities in residential zoning districts, agriculture exclusive, and timberland production zone. And the development standards promote invisible and low visibility facilities. To go over just a couple key terms, invisible facilities, essentially this just means that from a road or neighboring property, there's no discernible difference when you add the antenna. Low visibility facilities means that it's well integrated into the natural and or built environment. And then high visibility means that it is not well integrated. This is, very obviously a cell tower that looks, it stands out. So the first tier. Tier 1 is for projects that would not require a public hearing. These are the projects that get the streamlined treatment. We've identified types of facilities with the short shot clocks under federal rules, and these ones seem, to be highly compatible with this approach. So first is co-location of small cell wireless facilities and non-small cell wireless facilities. When they meet these criteria, these are criteria that are pulled directly from the federal regulations for what is an eligible facility. And it is absolutely crucial that when an antenna meets these criteria, that we have it processed like nearly immediately. A non-small cell wireless facility in industrial and commercial zones. So those are the bigger cell towers. We're saying that commercial zones and industrial zones are the most appropriate places for those to be near the population centers and most compatible with the other land uses. And small cell wireless facilities except in residential districts, agriculture exclusive, and TPZ. Applying for a tier 1 ZCC, these are the materials. It's really applying for a building permit. And then you would also need to complete a ZCC checklist. And that's where planning staff would make sure that you've met the objective criteria that we've identified for a tier 1 permit. And if we can check all the boxes, you get a recommendation of approval from planning for your building permit. There is a second part of tier 1, which is design review. So this doesn't require a public hearing, but it is technically a discretionary process. And the discretion would be, in this case, with the director of planning and building. The intent of having this is to retain a very streamlined process, but for projects that require some discretion. So this would allow staff to confirm that facilities are invisible, stealth design, or low visibility. It would protect residential zones, allowing for an appeal of a project, and it would provide a pathway for timely compliance with a quirk of California law that requires discretionary review for some co-locations. And so this is new invisible non-small facilities, except in residential AE, TPZ, and TE. TE is timberland exclusive. New small cell facilities in residential. Co-location of small cell and non-small cell that don't qualify for zoning clearance. So that's that. Again, there's this bit where California law doesn't agree with federal law, and some co-locations are required to be a discretionary action. And so this allows for that. Design review application would be considerably more robust than just the ZCC. In addition to having the building permit application, you would have to put together a planning application that would be substantially similar to what an application is when you're applying for a discretionary permit. But which in this case, it is discretionary. The discretion is just with the director. Okay, Tier 3, these are the ones that we really want to have a robust public process for. These are the ones that we think really ought to be considered by the Planning Commission. They are the non-small cell facilities in residential zones, all small and non-small in agriculture and TPZ, except those identified in Tier 1. New non-small that exceed the maximum height limit. New non-small high visibility. So again, from a high point, is it going to be a big tower that stands out? Is it going to be in a residential zone? Is it going to be in resource lands? Those are really what we're trying to adjust for here, or what we're trying to catch. And the application, much like design review, you have your building permit, you have your planning application. And then Tier 2, special permit to be heard by the zoning administrator. We conceive of this essentially as the bucket that catches everything else. If you don't qualify for the very streamlined approach, but also this isn't a facility that we think is, may have impacts that need to be looked at by the Planning Commission, it'll go to the zoning administrator. And of course, there is the ability to appeal if necessary. Okay, so that concludes the summary of the 3-tier permitting process. Prior to concluding the presentation, I want to just call your attention to several of the provisions that we've included. First is the backup power source. We've included a provision that says a permanent fossil fuel-based backup power shall not be permitted, and that it's only with the declaration of an emergency that could be used. We've included a provision stating that routine noise.
Seems on consent.
Time so that we can talk about this around 8:30.
Commissioner Mitchell, do you have a question at this time, or did you accidentally unmute?
No questions here.
Okay, thanks. Routine noise shall not exceed 50 decibels. And then, I guess we would need to edit that to take out backup generator in the case of an emergency shall not exceed 60 decibels. Special provisions for residential zones, no lattice towers and guide towers, and that all noise should be kept below 50 decibels. Visual impact analysis applications, all discretionary applications will provide a visual impact analysis that shows the maximum silhouette and includes a landscaping plan. And then co-location required. So when a non-small facility exceeds the maximum height limit for the underlying zone, it shall be built to accommodate future co-location. And then last, I wanted to call attention to the question of noticing. So one of the things that we'll expect with small cell when it is deployed is that these are going to be a lot of antennas. As I mentioned, they have a range of about 500 feet line of sight. So when you do have small cell facilities deployed within a community, there are a lot of them. And if you have multiple carriers, they're being deployed at scale. In the draft, we've included requirement of noticing following a decision. Some jurisdictions have required the applicant to send a notice of intent to apply to within a buffer distance and within 10 days of the application. And the question that we came to was, without sending out a notice with intent to apply, we don't know exactly how a community would know to file an appeal. Because the notice of final action will send it to the applicant and to any person who specifically requested it. things to consider is that providing notice is expensive, and we've been limited in what we can ask for as a reasonable amount of money. The FCC tells us that I think that the upper limit is $500, and I think that's for the process that would include planning and building, and potentially also public works as well. So there's not a big budget to function within. Some other jurisdictions have required applicants to send it out themselves. This is something that we've done, I think, with coastal development permits, but as I understand it, I think this would be a novel requirement in the inland zone. And so, yeah, I just wanted to call the Planning Commission's attention to the fact that that's kind of an open question. Right now, we just have the notice of final action included in the draft ordinance. Here are some of the highlights from the public works additions to the draft. So again, these are for small cell facilities that are going in the county maintained right of way. These would be administered by Public Works. However, as I said, we wanted to have one place in county code where all of the regulations pertaining to small cell could be found. And so the very brief overview of the highlights from the Public Works section of the ordinance is you're not going to create an ADA compliance issue. It's not going to be attached to certain types of county infrastructure like traffic signals, the traffic controller cabinets, traffic signs. You have to get permission from a facility owner where the equipment will be attached. Get input from the fronting landowner to ensure that the location will not conflict with future development, and then pay annual fees to the county for use of public right of way. If there are additional questions on the public works section of the code, I believe Bob Runkle is with us this evening and could respond to those. And so some of the comments that we received from referral agencies and the public. First, County Council suggested that we include explicit reference to our general plan standard relating to inadvertent discovery. So we added in an explicit reference to that. Building asked that we make sure that co-locations are consistent with, particularly if there is some sort of stealth design. You know, if you have a cell tower that's designed to look like a palm tree, we want to have the co-location also fit the palm tree. I actually don't think that we would have a palm tree here, but in Southern California. And we did add the provisions it's built into the way the ZCCs work that that when you're doing a co-location, it has to match in style. CDFW made a list of requests, and really they were mostly all addressed within the ordinance or elsewhere in the zoning code. The one that we had not addressed was the birds of prey. And so we added a performance standard saying that if a bird of prey establishes a nest on a facility, the permittee shall provide written notification to planning department and CDFW. And then Crown Castle, that was the telecommunications company that provided robust comment to us. The most critical change was that they had us explicitly add this federal category of eligible facilities requests. And so that was one of the significant changes that we made from 2 weeks ago to this draft, was that definition of what gets to be a ZCC building permit only project is that we made it match that federal definition of an eligible facilities request. So I know that was a lot of information and I breezed through it. Staff recommendation is that you receive public testimony, deliberate and comment, ask any questions, and ultimately continue the public hearing to either March 3rd or March 17th. We can ask the director which would be better. So with that, I will pass the mic back over.
Thank you, Keenan. We're at 9:20, and I had two commissioners that wanted to make comments at the beginning of our meeting. So I don't believe we're going to have any public comment at this time. We're going to move this to a date. And Director, would you have?
Yeah, I would recommend March 3rd. This has been kind of lingering, and so we've presented it, and now at the commission's pleasure, we can kind of go through at the next meeting. I think we've prepared to go through it as thoroughly as the commission might like.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion to move this, continue this, I should say, to the March 3rd meeting?
I would move to continue it to the March 3rd meeting, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
I would second that.
Thank you, Noah. Any discussion about that? All right, seeing Thomas, I see you have your hand up.
I'm just concerned. We opened a hearing and we took presentation from staff, but not giving public the opportunity to speak now and later. I don't know all the rules, but I'm a little concerned on that, being as we took a presentation and without hearing from the public.
We absolutely will let the public and staff speak more at the continued meeting, as well as the commission. So staff will have public will have their opportunity. Hopefully that answers your question. Peggy, I see you have your hand up.
Is it appropriate for the members of the commission to submit written comments if they feel strongly about something? Okay, because I'm going to work on it, because I have some strong feelings on this issue.
Yeah, we would welcome comments, and that Commissioner O'Neill, if you can get them to us a little bit sooner, we can try to incorporate them into the next discussion.
All right. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we had a motion and a second. Laura, a roll call vote, please.
Ryan Mitchell,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
I'm going to say no. I'm uncomfortable not allowing public to speak.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes. So the motion carries 6-1 to continue it until March 3rd. All right. Thank you, everyone, on that. Thanks for your presentation. So at the beginning, I had Commissioner McCaver want to ask some questions. I don't know if she got them all out there, but here's your chance, Melanie, to ask whatever you wanted. And then Brian had some thoughts as well.
Thank you. Yes, I believe the director wrote my questions down. They had to do with the monitoring for dark sky violations. The presence absence is not prohibitively expensive, like the quantification of dark sky violations or dark sky data collection. And then the other one had to do with the list of the projects that we had approved with enhanced monitoring. And if we could find out how many of those actually had violations post-approval, just so we can get an idea of whether good faith efforts are working out. And then I finally, I wanted to announce to all of us, to fellow commissioners, that the next CCPCA conference is October 14th to 16th in Sacramento. And I hope everyone can make it. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I will say we are actively working on improving the dark sky standards right now. There are 10 sites that we're currently in the process of notifying that they're in violation. 9 of those are within the permitted process or have been approved. One of them is a unpermitted cultivation site that will be getting a much different set of paperwork, being a notice of violation and notice to abate. It is the enforcement priority for this year to address light violations. And so we are working on creative ways to do that. We are trying to work with people who do night lights and get out and be able to identify sites that have that are violating the dark sky standards. We have looked into, to a certain extent, the ability to get satellite imagery for nighttime flights. Struggle is it's a different satellite, flies at different times, and it is a different cost. And that's not something we have found to be feasible as of this time. The second question had to do with results of enhanced monitoring. Don't mind at all giving a like an annual report when we do inspections. And we can certainly do that maybe at the end of the either calendar year or fiscal year. Fiscal year is right in the middle of the growing season. So maybe at the end of the growing season, after we've finished our inspections during the growing season, we can give a report of not only the sites that have enhanced conditions, but just regular sites that have been approved as well, just so you have an idea of how well permittees are complying with their conditions. We are finding that it is a bit of an educational process to help people understand what conditions mean and what they need to do to comply with them. So that is a significant effort that we're working on right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that update.
Thank you. Then next, Brian, you had some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this doesn't have to be answered tonight necessarily. Perhaps the director could send an email to all of us or those that indicate an interest. But I've heard from a number of constituents who live in the county jurisdiction at the end part of the city of Arcata's repaving Old Arcata Road as it passes Jacoby Creek Road. And I don't know how to answer questions of how the city, who's elected by residents of the city of Arcata, can make decisions about, you know, places out in the county, and how I can point constituents to how they can have a say. I know the EIR was approved last night, but there's still roughly 70% of the specifics of the plan to be fleshed out. And if we as the county can put that out there so that, you know, people who don't reside in the city can have an opportunity to continue to comment and shape this into a project that can be mutually advantageous for both city of Arcata residents and county residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Director, would you like?
I'm going to try to share my screen here and And maybe not. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties tonight. I'm not getting the GIS, Josh.
Sometimes there's like more bottom right.
That's a share.
Go up to the bottom right square right there to the right. Yeah. Scroll down. No.
Okay. So I got so much open, huh? Okay. Thank you. So sorry for the technical difficulty there. This is the area where the roundabout is being constructed. You can see that this is the city of Arcata's boundaries right here. And so the area that is really in the county right of way is what's in the county. And so it's a little bit difficult for the county to try to get involved in a city project when most of the work is really within the right of way or within the city. And after I think it was Sue Moore came to the Planning Commission previously, I took a look at this and tried to figure out, it's like, what would the county's interest be? And unfortunately, what I came to the conclusion of is that while there is some coastal zone things going on in here, there really is mostly impacts within the existing right-of-way. And so I understand the people out there are highly opposed to this, but it's not a land use issue that exists for the county. And if the Planning Commission would like to, express concern about it, I guess that could be done. But the reality is that this is a project that is a city of Arcata project, largely within the city, but does extend to a certain extent into county jurisdiction, but it is all within county right of way. And so there's not land use permitting that comes into play there. I hope that answers the question.
And I haven't heard any concerns about all of the rest of the project inside the city of Arcata. It's once you pass into county jurisdiction, there is a school who's going to have one of its primary ingress and egress removed, and the roundabout getting very close to where the children are walking, as well as the impacts to the character of the community of the Jacoby Creek Road residents that are all 100% county residents. And so they don't feel like the city council folks or planning commission for the city, has any vested interest in listening to county residents because they don't select those folks. And so I would, welcome the opportunity to have this on our agenda so county residents could speak to us and we could write a letter potentially to help shape that and address those specific concerns. It's like, it's really just the last little bit of the project that extends into the county that I've heard at least 4 constituents question complain and not understand how the city, whose line has a specific spot, can decide for county residents and a school wholly within the county jurisdiction.
I'll take a look at that, Commissioner Mitchell, and I'll try to bring the drawings back and report back to the commission in terms of what the actual design is. It was not my understanding that roundabout went that far out so as to affect the school driveway.
Yes, if you could potentially speak to folks at the school, or I could put you in touch with some of the parent group that's formed to speak on behalf of the school children. It's a kindergarten through, I think, 6th grade Montessori school. So it's not part of the Jacoby Creek School District. The rest of the project looks great to me. It's just that piece in our jurisdiction that I don't remember having to give an opinion or take a look at it as a planning commissioner, and I haven't heard the Board of Supervisors do likewise. So if we just focus on that part, I think all the constituents who've spoken to me would be satisfied.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see Noah had his hand up, and then Mike, and then I'd like to.
I just wanted to thank Brian for bringing this up because I have heard about it as well. And I liked his suggestion, which I think the directors agreed to have a brief presentation about this, even though it's not our decision and not our project, just to educate us about it. And then we can see if we want to forward on some input. So thanks, Brian.
Mike Newman.
Well, I think you were before me, Alan.
Go ahead. Mine's not on this subject, so.
Oh, okay. So I'm interested in this too. Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell, for bringing this forward. I wasn't aware of that, but I can see the concerns of many of the county residents down Jacoby Creek Road there and the surrounding area in the county. So I'd like to hear a little bit more so we can see if there's some input to be obtained there.
All right. Anybody else on this topic? All right, seeing none. So thank you, Director, and we'll look forward to seeing that. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of a great gentleman from our midst. John Winsler passed away recently, and he was just a huge fixture in Humboldt County. There isn't many things that his hands didn't touch as an engineer, and he will be dearly missed. He lived a full life, but he just did so many things around here, was so involved, and just needed to be said, I felt. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Anything
Alan?
else, Thomas? I see you have your hand up.
Well, being as we're just sharing general observations and things like that, I know lots of projects that come before us have all these mitigation measures for wildlife and endangered species. While on a bike ride in southern Humboldt on Sunday with my son, a golden eagle was just floating around right by a bridge, freeway noise, trucks going by, Jake Break, river. So it didn't seem to be bothered by the loud noise of large vehicles going across the bridge. So just food for thought.
Thank you, Thomas. Anything else? Well, with that, seeing nothing, I think we'll call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you on March 3rd.
Good night.
And just to, if I could, just to remind you all, it will be here in the board chamber.
Amen.
And one quick question on that: are masks required or not? I saw a mask on an employee there. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So if you're fully vaccinated, no mask is required.
Okay.
Do you require our vaccination status?
No.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. See y'all in person.
Yeah, looking
Good
forward.
night, all.
Thank you. Good night.